think we need to ask the question as to what is stalling any sort of progressive potential of resolving this strike. And unfortunately, right now, what's stalling is this insistence on binding arbitration.
We're not going to binding arbitration right now, or at least we're resisting it, because binding arbitration, first of all, is a last resort when parties can't reach an agreement after bargaining. And in the first instance, York University hasn't actually bargained with us. They haven't presented with any kind of comprehensive package. They immediately insisted on going to arbitration almost from the get-go. So that's not bargaining in good faith, and that's not actually in our interest to do the binding arbitration. The second reason is also that arbitration works through a third party who doesn't have the context that we have as part of this bargaining system, and is based on the average wages in the sector. So in no way is it good for a union that tends to lead the sector in activism and lead the sector in fighting for good contracts.
If we go on arbitration, the frame of reference for our wages or for our benefits will be other unions who have similar jobs as us. It can be contract faculty or TAs. But I think York is a little bit different from the other universities in the sense that our classroom sizes are really, really big. So the role a TA plays in an undergraduate student's education is huge. In that, while a student doesn't have a lot of chance to have one-to-one correspondence with the course director or with the instructor, they encounter their TAs more often.
I think that York has a history, and not such an old history. In 1997, when York was negotiating with CUPE, they agreed that binding arbitration was not a way to negotiate with education workers. And right now we're in the same position, and York seems to have a very different position about binding arbitration. They feel that, in fact, it's the only way to negotiate. And so I think it's very important that we're aware of this, that we're mindful, that we tell undergraduates as to exactly why they think that binding arbitration is so much a piece of the resolve when in fact it isn't. Because at the end of the day, if we go back under those terms, it's going to make for an incredibly tense and non-productive working environment, a very resentful one, to be forced back to work, because essentially that's what binding arbitration is. We need to go back to work on our terms, and terms that are very reasonable.
Obviously, we're opposed to this for a simple reason. When we talk about collective bargaining, it means that we're able to represent our own interests to the employer and come up with an agreement together. Sometimes that takes a while, sometimes it takes strikes to force their hand to come to the table to bargain fairly. If we give the whole project over to arbitration, what it means is that a third party who doesn't understand our interests and who isn't able to motivate for them directly is going to make that decision, and this puts us in a position of powerlessness.
So by getting into binding arbitration, we're forced to get lower than what we're getting right now, and that's not acceptable to us. We want to get what we deserve, and that's why we don't want to go for binding arbitration.